presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
This is Duck Insider.
These are good problems to have, right? So much success that you have more than one place to be.
5-3, touchdown, Oregon.
Off the dribble, launches, and hits the three. Oregon leads.
What a great opportunity it is to be able to play at the University of Oregon.
I'm just incredibly proud to be a part of something like this.
She wants another three. Oh, three in a row.
Swing and a miss. Oregon is headed to the Super Regional.
Fans being out there making this a great impact.
We are so privileged and so fortunate. We get to see all these young people. We get to see this incredible growth, which is what college is all about.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
Welcome to a new week in the Country Financial Studio. It's Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano here today. And that's it. That's all you get for the week. It's only me today for Duck Insider throughout this week because, well, there are so many games going on, holiday weekend going on. It is a packed week, and the way the schedule fell, it means we only have time for a Monday show, which means that we will be going fast-paced on today's show, and we'll also be breaking down what your entire holiday week should be focused and centered around, which is Oregon athletics from the jump. A little bit of family on Thursday. You can get in some family, some food, some fun times on Thursday. No Oregon games on Thursday. But today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Friday, yeah, you've got Oregon Athletics. Saturday, you got Oregon Athletics the whole way through. It's an Oregon Athletics type of weekend, type of week, really, around here. And it starts today because it is Oregon women's basketball game day. Both the men and the women participating in various tournaments, showcases, festivals, whatever you want to call it. It starts with the women who are in Hawaii today. They will be playing against Georgia Tech at 4 p.m. In the Hawaii North Shore Showcase in Leh, Hawaii. All I got to say is that I'm pretty envious of Chris Clayton right about now. Was raining pretty hard when I walked into the office this morning. I've seen some of Chris Clayton and Oregon women's basketball and the activities and excursions that they have been on while they are in Hawaii. And let me just tell you, they are soaking up a little bit more sun than we are in Eugene. It's a great retreat. Happy for the women's basketball team to be able to go to the Hawaii North Shore Showcase and showcase their talent. Starting against Georgia Tech, it'll be the first time that these teams will meet up since 2009, and Oregon searching for their first win against the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech. Oregon got their first win against an Auburn team the Ducks had never beaten. And when you have fun like this, if you're watching along live on YouTube, Facebook in the 1 o'clock hour, then how can you not enjoy a trip like this when you're having this type of fun like the Oregon women's basketball team is? So it starts today, 4 p.m. against Georgia Tech. If you're live with us in the 1 o'clock hour, it'll be 2 hours, really an hour and a half after we close off air here, where Chris Clayton will have pregame in Hawaii for that matchup. Also, the women will play same time tomorrow at 4 p.m. against South Dakota State, where these teams have some familiar history against each other in recent memory. The Ducks beat South Dakota State in Eugene in 2019, and in 2018, the Jackrabbits met up with the Ducks in the 2018 NCAA tournament, where the Ducks beat them in the Sweet 16 and moved on to the Elite Eight with a 63-53 victory. So 2 games coming down the pipeline for women's basketball. How can you watch them? They will be on Baller TV. There are links in the Go Ducks on GoDucks.com. If you go to women's basketball, there will be a link to Baller TV. It is a fee. There is a subscription that you do have to pay in order to watch the event. There is a $20 event pass on Baller TV. If you can't foot the bill, don't want to foot the bill, we've got the buttery voice of Chris Clayton there in Hawaii. That's what he's there for. It's not just all good times, lays, and luau's. get into business, Chris. And it's going to be a fun one because Chris is calling the 21st ranked team in the nation, according to the new AP poll that came out earlier today, where the Ducks sitting at 21st, a slow climb up into the rankings. Started at 25th, last week at 23, now at 21. So that's the women's basketball side of things. Also, men's basketball. They will be in action throughout the week. Joey is in Las Vegas for the Players Era Festival. The Ducks will open the Players Era Festival against Texas A&M on Tuesday at 1:30. That game will be televised on TBS. It's the only linear streaming game, or rather, it's the only broadcast streaming game on actual TV that you can get from the men and women this weekend, because after the Ducks play Texas A&M on Tuesday, they will play San Diego State on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. That game will be on Max. So it's on what was formerly HBO Max, now just Max, streaming service, subscription service, where you will have to go in order to watch that game against San Diego State. It's a good field here at the Players Era Festival, where Oregon will play 3 games. It'll be the Tuesday, Wednesday, and then there will be a game on Saturday that is TBD. Don't know the time, don't know the opponent yet. But 6th-ranked Houston is in the field. 9th-ranked Alabama is in the field. Texas A&M is the 20th-ranked team in the country. Creighton, familiar foe for the Ducks from last year's tournament, 21st in the country. Oregon receiving votes in the top 25. And then there's Rutgers, Notre Dame, San Diego State, teams that aren't in the top 25, but teams that do have a really strong pedigree as a program. This week in collegiate basketball is always a who's who of tournaments and big-time matchups, and there's some big-time tournaments going on this weekend. This entire week. I'm not sure that there is one with a more stacked field than the Players Era Festival. It is a big field. It starts with Oregon against Texas A&M on Tuesday, tomorrow at 1:30 on TBS. Joey will have air at 1 o'clock. Because men's basketball plays at 1:30 and 1 on Tuesday and Wednesday, that's why we don't have shows tomorrow or Wednesday. So if you're listening, you will be listening to Joey calling basketball against A&M and against San Diego State Tuesday, Wednesday, and TBD on Saturday. The Ducks, of course, against Texas A&M. They lost in the NIT, their first loss against the Aggies in 2022. They are 1-1 against Texas A&M, as in 1970 the Ducks got their only win against A&M. And then, of course, San Diego State, a team that Oregon has played 2 games against, 1-1 as well. They played a home and home in the 96, 97 through 98 season. They played in the late weeks of November and early weeks of December in 96 and 97. So that's what's going on the basketball front. On the volleyball front, Oregon this last weekend swept Michigan in Ann Arbor, 3-set sweep, and now they're going to play Purdue Wednesday at Matthew Knight Arena on Big Ten Network. It is the last home match for Matt Ulmer's Oregon volleyball squad, and it is a huge one because of where Oregon and Purdue are situated, not only in the Big Ten standings, but in the national rankings. Big Ten standings, Nebraska's at the top of the table, Penn State's at 2, Wisconsin at 3. Those 3 teams have almost assuredly locked up a host spot for the regional round or the first round of the NCAAs. Now, where do Purdue and Oregon sit in the RPI? Purdue's at 15th, Oregon's at 17th. The top 16 teams host. This match between Oregon and Purdue at MKA could be essentially for if Oregon is going to host at MKA this year in volleyball. It is a huge match coming up against Purdue, a talented Purdue team, and big for host scenarios. If you can get out the night before Thanksgiving, Wednesday night, 7:30 is when the Ducks will host Purdue. And then there will be one more match to close out the regular season for Oregon volleyball at UCLA at 1:30 p.m. to close out the season for Oregon volleyball. Also, this last weekend, we do have to talk about cross country because it was a strong showing at nationals for cross country. The women finished in 5th place. It was the highest ranked finish for Oregon since they took third in 2018. And the Ducks on the women's side had 3 All-Americans. Shalon Ayildiz finished in 13th place. And then the two that you see on the screen if you're watching live with us, Maddie Elmore finished 25th, a 27-spot improvement from last year. And Annika Thompson finished 32nd, up 72 spots from where she finished just a year ago. 3 All-Americans on the women's side of things for cross country. Saturday marked the 11th time for the women of Oregon to collect 3 All-Americans in a single year. On the men's side, they finished in 14th place. Aiden Smith was the All-American for the Ducks on the men's side of things. And something that I thought was really cool, Oregon Track and Field, they put out a post yesterday where Maddie Elmore, Annika Thompson, and Aiden Smith, all Oregon kids, if you're watching live with us, this is Annika Thompson at Junction City and Maddie Elmore running for South Eugene against each other. Now they're All-Americans on the same University of Oregon team. That is cool. I don't care what you say. That is so cool. And then Smith, he ran for Lincoln up in Portland. The high school to collegiate journeys for these Oregonians, taking home All-Americans, those 3, along with Shalon Ayildiz, taking home All-American honors for Oregon over the weekend, running in nationals, NCAAs for cross country. What's also on the slate this week? Football against Washington. Didn't have a kick time last week. We know when and where Oregon will play this week. It was always going to be at Autzen Stadium, but it will be at 4:30 p.m. when the Ducks will kick off against the Huskies on NBC. So that means that for us at the Oregon Sports Network, our pregame will start at 2:30. Kick will be at 4:30 on NBC versus Washington. It's always a big matchup when the Ducks face off against the Huskies, and it's always a good time when Joey Mack and Tony Castricone get together. That's the voice of the Huskies. We're going to get to their conversation right after we take a quick timeout on Duck Inside on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
More Duck Insider coming up on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys, I love this song. I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Ugh! I love this guy. What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Back here in the Country Financial Studio, it's Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Ryan Milano here with you in studio. But on a Friday of last week, because it's such a weird week with Joey going on the road to Vegas for a Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday festival for the men, and Chris on the road in Hawaii, it meant that Joey had to fit in the conversation with Tony Castricone, the voice of the Huskies, this week. And Tony Castricone's got a lot of places to go. Actually, back in our OSN studio, Andrew Ellison is back there. And I'm not sure if he wants me to tell the fans this, but he does also sometimes produce for the Washington Sports Network. So this is a clash of the titans for him back in Winston-Salem. I told him before we went on the air today that he was going to get his extra fill of Tony Castricone because he couldn't be in for the coaches show later today for Washington's coaches show. So he'll get his daily fix of Tony Castricone now in the conversation between Joey and Tony Castricone, previewing what is always an electric matchup between Oregon and Washington. Let's get to the conversation.
Because of the double rivalry week, if I can call it that, it kind of works out nice that you have the bye week for both teams, then the holiday. Gives us a chance to talk with the voice of the Huskies. Tony Castricone is with us. Shorter week next week, Tony. Both you and I are doing basketball, so we decided, you know what, let's talk on Friday, get things rolling. How are things up in the great purple north?
Good, man. George Orwell back in 1984 wrote about 2 minutes hate. I think this is what 2 weeks hate that we get to have, where we just look at Twitter and be like, God, Oregon, can't stand it, gross, Oregon.
That's so
just
true.
Do that for 2 weeks, staring into my Twitter. I think, things are good up here. About as good as, honestly, I could have expected. 6-5 with a very reasonable chance of being 8-3. And I don't say that from like an excuse-making perspective, but the wins have not been super close wins. It's not like we skated by in most of the victories. 3 of the losses were blowouts. We got beat by the better team, and we're clearly in a rebuild after losing all that we lost from a year ago. 2 of the losses were historic losses for us. The loss at Rutgers, we outgained them by 222 yards and lost the game. That's only happened one other time in Husky history.
Yeah.
The loss to Washington State, we outgained them by 100 yards and won the turnover battle. We had won 65 consecutive games when those 2 things had occurred. And so, I think all the charmed fortune, things continually falling on the right side last year, kind of caught up with us a little bit, and they fell on the wrong side early in this season. But I got to give a lot of credit to Jed Fish and his staff and these players trying to come together in a somewhat random conglomeration of guys, putting on a purple W and trying to make 2024 the best it can be. I think they've been really competitive. If I'm being honest, they're probably better than I thought they were going to be as far as percentage of plays where they win, And I think now it's just a matter of, like, here late in the season, can they put it all together for 60 minutes? I mean, we've seen good football out of this team at times. They went 8 games deep in the season without being outgained. I mean, they played really well offensively in some ways. And, so that's a long answer of saying it's interesting for sure. Here's one for you, Joey. Going into week 11 against UCLA, and I do not have the updated numbers for this, but this was going into our game against UCLA, your game against Wisconsin. The top 4 teams in the country at the end of last year's regular season were Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. Those teams went a combined 48-0 in the regular season. Those same 4 teams this year, going into week 11, were 18-21.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Like, that's never happened in, we're adjusting to the fact that that's a thing that can happen in sports now. And also, for the record, Indiana, perpetually a 2-win team, is randomly 11-0 going into, or 10-0 going into the weekend's game before we record this. So, college football is weird, man. Weird stuff happening all over the place. And, we're hoping that one really weird thing happens in Autzen this upcoming weekend.
College football is weird, and I think it's funny. We were talking about this on the pregame show for us last week, Tony, that you've seen so much change in college football, roster movement. We all know, right? It's a dynamic situation, but what you just described illustrates a point that we were making, that it's really difficult to stay at the top, and also you have to be ready for departures, not just to the NFL, but sometimes just to another roster. And you all went through the coaching change. I think it really illustrates just where college football is right now, don't you?
I think that a coaching change for any reason, good, bad, indifferent, I think it's going to hurt in the short term more now than it ever has before.
Yeah, agreed.
I think the reason is because particularly where it happens in the calendar really matters. And, it's not just Washington that got hit late in the cycle, but also Michigan, right? Both teams in the title game have struggled to kind of, ride the wave of the accomplishment that had occurred the year before. And I think, you lose a transfer portal cycle incoming, but you have an extra transfer portal cycle outgoing, right? And so, that's just like it's a triple whammy. And then there's all the challenges that always come along with being new.
Right.
And so you look at Curt Cignetti and you say, well, how did he do it? Well, he's kind of brought everybody with him from a place, and they did do a really good job of, their whole model. Their motto right now is production over potential. So they've got a lot of guys that have done it at the lower levels. And frankly, like, their Big Ten schedule happened to not be that hard.
Right. Yep.
They had a pretty good lineup to get late into the season. And so, good for them. Good for them. I'm happy for Indiana, man. I'm happy for Don Fisher, the voice of the Hoosiers, who called 51 years of crappy football, and now in year 52, he's got a winner.
Yeah,
good for him. But I just think, golly, it is year to year. You just don't know what you're going to get, and if you go through a coaching change, buckle up, because it's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, and you guys went through one on that line of thinking. I wanted to ask you about. You touched on it a bit. The expectation preseason, I think most Husky fans would say that Coach Fish and his staff have probably outperformed the expectation preseason. What's the vibe on that from Seattle?
I think people close to the program feel really good about the foundation that's being laid. I think, if you look online, you're going to get criticism and stuff like that. And
you don't say.
I think it's understandable when you look at what Washington has done over the last 5, 6, 7 years, in spite of its constant turnover, has really found a way to continue to bounce back and have really meaningful, like the start of 2016 and on, like us, hate us, whatever, we've got to have been one of the most interesting programs in college football over the last 8 years.
That's true.
Like, is interesting a fair word? Like, can we say interesting?
You're certainly intriguing, that's for sure.
To have been to 2 college football playoffs, and also to have gone 4-8, and to also have had a 4-game season period,
right?
And to have had 4 coaches, and to have had all these ups and downs, it's wild. And so, I think what this program is kind of craving right now is a level of stability that it hasn't had in probably the last half decade. And, I think people on the outside will look at Jed Fish and his resume and say, okay, well, this guy hops around from place to place. This is not going to be the stabilizing force that you hope it is. But I think if you zoom in a little bit and get on the inside and actually talk to him and see, like, wow, his family likes Seattle. He's a really big family person. And also, he has ascended now to a place where there aren't many jobs that are going to be open year to year that are much better than this one, especially now that this is now a Big Ten football job. And can you win here if you have good recruiting chops? Absolutely. That's been proven, even if you aren't winning with recruiting class year after year after year. And so I think we've got a guy that likes building this, wants to build it. He has played a lot of freshmen, and he sees those freshmen as the face of Husky football in the future. And, you're going to see guys out there on Saturday at Autzen Stadium that there are a lot of young pups that are playing really meaningful minutes. They're 18 years old that, God willing, if this program can kind of keep it together for the next 3 to 4, that you're going to see in 3 years, and they're going to be total stars, right? All Big Ten players. And so, yeah, it is wild, but I think at the same time, there is a lot of hope that Jed could be the stabilizing force that we're looking for. Ironically, the guy that's kind of, been constantly climbing that ladder, could be the guy to stabilize this thing.
You know what I loved about part one of that conversation between Joey Mack and Tony Castricone? Is that we put a lower third in for Tony Castricone that said voice of the Huskies with an Oregon logo right next to it. That makes me happy. It's a big week. It's a big week coming up, and it's a big conversation. There's still a lot more to talk about between Joey Mack, Tony Castricone, Ducks, Dogs coming up Saturday, 4:30 on NBC, starting 2:30 pregame show on the Oregon Sports Network. It's going to be fun. I hope to see all of you at Autzen Stadium. I hope to see all of you for part 2 of this conversation when we return on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Hey Duck fans, at Country Financial, they make insurance easy. Whether you're shopping for home, auto, or more, their representatives will take the time to understand your specific needs and explain what options work best for you. Worry less and feel more confident knowing you're covered. Visit countryfinancial.com to get started today. Experience more with Country Financial. Auto and home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, and Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Don't go anywhere. Duck Insider continues after these messages on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
I'll trust water bottles and a flashlight to save the day, but I'll be proved wrong.
With a tornado approaching, I'll realize that I like a wheelchair-accessible shelter.
When the floodwaters rise, I'll be up in the attic with 20 cans of beans. It's a recipe for disaster.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Comes to a gun suicide attempt, all it takes is a moment.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me, and I contemplated suicide. My grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
Store your guns, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo. Hear more safe stories at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
I'm coming home to the place that I remember, back to the land of my first love. Would you spread wide your arms for this wayward son? I left my heart.
Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union here in the Country Financial Studio. Ryan Milano with you. And if you're live with us, YouTube, Facebook, got a great comment. Will Hernandez says, can't wait for this weekend. We're coming down from Arlington, Washington. Go Ducks. This is a Pacific Northwest rivalry to the core. And I just love Washington occupants that are Duck fans that are coming down to Autzen Stadium for the game. Something about that just makes me so happy. All right, we got to get to the conversation. Part 2 between Joey Mack, Tony Castricone, breaking down Ducks and Dogs this weekend in a big one. Here it is.
Talking about the obvious question that comes up in college football, the home field versus going on the road. Safe to say that that's been a thing for Washington this year, like every other college football team in America?
Well, it's one thing to say you're always going to play better at home than on the road, which is true. Huskies are 6-0 in Husky Stadium, 0-5 outside of Husky Stadium. Also, I would say just look at the strength of schedule home versus road.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't broken it down in probably 3 weeks or so, but the last time I checked in, our home opponents were combined 22 and 25. Our road opponents were combined 39 and 8. I mean, and we're young. Young teams kind of struggle on the road, and then you go up against teams that not only are you playing at 9 a.m. or 3,000 miles away from home at Rutgers, or, in a whiteout or whatever, but you're doing it against really good teams. I mean, none of this is really that surprising to me. I look at us as a team that's laying a foundation, a team that's dangerous, and a team that, I look at Oregon as being highly motivated to play really well in this game based on the recent history in this rivalry.
Sure.
And there's a lot of dudes wearing green that are going to remember that purple W from last year and how big those 2 games were, and they're going to have their opportunity for revenge. And Dan Lanning does not pull guys in the fourth quarter. You guys can run up the score from time to time if you want to, and there's going to be a highly motivated Oregon team that's going to want to try to punish Washington. And I think they're going to have that attitude to kind of avoid that November upset. I mean, because Washington is a team that is dangerous. I mean, Washington's got some dudes. Washington cares. They really want to win this game too. I mean, there is a lot of pride on the line. Washington does not have a big playoff run ahead of it. It would love nothing more than to go down and keep a winning streak against Oregon going, and to do it in Autzen against the number 1 team in the country. It would love nothing more, right? And so I think that it's going to be a fun one, because you're going to get 2 teams healthy, 2 teams coming off a bye, as healthy as you can be in November. I mean, we all know these guys are playing at 70% in the month of November. But 2 teams highly motivated, 2 teams that really care about this game. And it's to end the season for the first time ever.
Right.
And my hope is that we start a tradition, if we can crank it back up, which I think we're going to be really good next year. My hope is we can start a tradition where every single Saturday after Thanksgiving, the whole country tunes in to see Gus and Joel, Ohio State, Michigan at noon Eastern, and then at 3:30 Eastern, it's Washington, Oregon, the 2 best rivalries in college football. And we're both going to have to show up year after year in order for that to happen. But that's what I want this thing to become. And I think it can be a killer doubleheader, and I think it could entertain the entire country. But there's going to have to be those continuing storylines to make that occur. And I think what's going to happen, good or bad for the Dogs on Saturday in Autzen, it's going to be another chapter in those stories, which have been rich and interesting and a lot of fun to follow over the last decade.
Sign me up. Talking with Tony Castricone, the voice of the Huskies. Bye week focuses. What the Dogs want to / need to get better at during the bye week and heading into the matchup.
Well, consistency has been the deal all year. I mean, again, good in stretches, but, can you put a full game together? I think what's going to be interesting is the quarterback situation. You got Will Rogers, 51 career starts, true veteran presence, a great human being, too. I like this kid a lot. And yet the dynamic athlete who's coming on really strong is the 18-year-old freshman, Damon Williams, who can kind of do it all. And it's been a cobbled together offensive line that is also injured. So that's hard, right? And Will Rogers came to Washington thinking he was going to play in a different offense, and that he was going to be out of the shotgun like he has been the last 9 years of his life. And now he's under center a little bit more, and it's kind of an adjustment, all this stuff. And the line, with the injuries and everything, has kind of struggled to hold up. And the one guy that's kind of able to deal with that well is the freshman that can run. Right. He's got a great set of wheels, right? And so it'd be interesting to see how they use those 2 interchangeably on and off on Saturday. Who has the early success? For all of Washington's success moving the football, they haven't had a ton of success scoring the football. And they haven't had much success at all on opening drives. They have not scored on an opening drive in the first 11 games this year. And so that was the key thing in Autzen in 22. That was the key thing at home in 23. The Pac-12 championship game in 23. Those quick starts by Washington. I think I studied going into the 22 Oregon game. You guys had won like 20 games in a row when scoring first. I don't know if that streak is still going, but but Washington was able to hit first in a lot of those games, and the Huskies have struggled to do that this year. So they're going to have to find a way to start fast, and they're going to have to find a way to hold up in the trenches. And then if Oregon decides to just go zero blitz, like what's your counter to that, right? How are you going to deal with that? And those are the things that I think are going to be interesting. But that and just healing up and being as healthy as possible on the bye, I think those are the things that are really the keys for the Dogs.
You touched a lot on the offense and a bit about the identity, so I'll ask you about the defense. What is the defensive identity, and what do they want it to be here?
The identity is do your 1 of 11. Steve Belichick, defensive coordinator, just wants everybody to do his job and defend every blade of grass. And what's been really cool is to see how that mentality has shown up time and again this year inside the 2-yard line. Like, right. I mean, their ability to wall up and get stops inside the 5 has been crucial. I mean, it won them the USC game, but it also preserved wide margins in other games, in other times, in other places. And it kept them in some of those losses for a while with their ability to have goal line stands. And so, I think the linebacker room is the strength of the team. Carson Bruner, Alfonso Tuputala, seniors that have been around forever. Kamori House, number 28, is the true freshman that came through with the huge TFL at the goal line against USC, and is just a dynamic playmaker. I really like him. And they're a veteran in the secondary, but it's been a struggle kind of stopping the run. And we know, it's no secret what Dan Lanning's teams like to do, power run. We saw it in 22. We saw it in 23. I mean, in those 2 regular season games, you guys ran, your total offense was like over 1,100 yards in those 2 games combined, and you go 0-2. I mean, that's just an unbelievable statistic, right? We know what you're going to try to throw at Washington, no doubt about it. You're going to try to run the football. You got a great front line. You got a great set of running backs. And so now it's just going to be on Washington to try to limit the damage from that, try to keep it a lower scoring game so it gives the offense a shot.
Still continuing the conversation with Joey Mack as well as Tony Castricone. There's 3 parts to this conversation. We've gotten through 2, and there's still a lot more to break down. This is going to be an exciting matchup between the Ducks and the Dogs as Oregon tries to get on top of Washington for the first time in the Dan Lanning era. That's big. Continuing to talk about it when we return on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear autumn leaves, you won't be covering roads alone this season. Take on fall in the powerful Toyota Tundra or tackle trails in a Tacoma. Head to Toyota.com for more info. Toyota, let's go places.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear autumn leaves, you won't be covering roads alone this season. Take on fall in the powerful Toyota Tundra or tackle trails in a Tacoma. Head to Toyota.com for more info. Toyota, let's go places.
Duck Insider continues after this timeout on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
This message is for Shauna, my mom who just finished her high school diploma. I wanted to say I'm so proud of you for finishing school. You taught me it's never too late to achieve your dreams. I hope to make you as proud as you have made me.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You said you'd never buy your kid candy from the checkout aisle. Or forget extra diapers. You'd never lick your thumb to clean their face. Never, ever become a minivan mom. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk in temperatures as low as 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Never happens. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and throw my head back and come on now, don't forget to say you will.
Welcome back inside the Country Financial Studio on Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Joey Mack, Tony Castricone, they will be at Autzen Stadium on Saturday at 4:30 for this matchup between the Ducks and the Dogs. If you missed it, it'll be on NBC. We did get the 4:30 draw where there were a few games that were up in the air, put on that 6-day hold after last week. Oregon, the latest of which on NBC against Washington. 2:30 pregame show on the Oregon Sports Network. I'll be there. Jerry will be there. Jorgie will be there. Joey will be there. Whole crew will be at Autzen Stadium on Saturday for what is a big-time football matchup. Now, if you're wondering what's going to go on with basketball that same day, that's a great question because basketball also plays on Saturday. That will be TBD based on who their opponent's going to be and what time that is going to be. Joey will be with us at football. We will have a fill-in over there for basketball on Saturday. I think it could potentially, probably, will be Chris Clayton going and calling that game on Saturday for the men. If you want to hear Chris Clayton sooner than that, you can hear him today against Georgia Tech, where the women of Oregon will face off against the Yellow Jackets in the Hawaii North Shore Showcase. 4 p.m. today is game time for the Ducks against the Yellow Jackets. Also 4 p.m. tomorrow for Oregon on the road in Hawaii for the Hawaii North Shore Showcase. Still got more of the conversation to break down. Tony Castricone, Joey Mack, Oregon, Washington. I said this in a baseball broadcast when Oregon played Washington last year. I do think that the three best words in sports are Ducks versus Dogs. Does anyone disagree? It's in collegiate sports. I don't know if there's a better three-word sentence you can come up with. If you have one, drop them. YouTube, Facebook comments. If there are suggestions that rival Ducks versus Dogs, I just don't think that there is. Well, we got a duck talking to a dog. Joey Mack, Tony Castricone, part 3 of the conversation.
Realizing I'm asking the voice of the Huskies this, I know part of the answer. What's the view of Oregon and specifically this team? What is the assessment from the coaching staff, from you, Tony, of what Oregon has right now?
So great question, and I'm not sure I have a lot of clarity on that at the time that we're recording this, and I'll get a little bit more as the week goes on. But I think the view of Oregon is really good team, well-rounded, and, a team that in Autzen is as good a team as anybody in the country. I think on the road, I was just talking about our strength of schedule on the road. I'm not sure that you guys have faced the strength of schedule on the road to give people nationally confidence that you're going to be an elite team outside of Autzen. In Autzen, you've been everything that you possibly could be. And it's turned out that, after that one come-together game against Idaho, it's turned out that Boise State's pretty darn good, right? So that's a quality win on your home turf there. So the Ohio State win, amazing win, right? You've got the resume in Autzen Stadium to be the number one team in the country. And so, it's a very formidable challenge for Washington this year.
Rivalries always mean a lot. It's going to mean a lot this time around. I feel like I have to ask you about a guy that is now one of our favorites to talk with in Jabbar Muhammad. He has a very unique perspective of this rivalry, doesn't he?
Yeah. We hated to lose Jamar, period, because I like Jamar a lot. And hated to lose him to Oregon even more. But I think, hell of a player, man. Just a really, really good cornerback. And, I'm not sure we beat Oregon State last year without Jabbar Muhammad. He had one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen against the Beavers in that game. And even just like his toughness, I remember, Texas driving down the field in the Sugar Bowl and time winding down off the clock. And then, he goes out of the game after a play because he's banged up. And then he's out there after missing one snap. He goes right back out onto the field. Just a high character kid. I like guys who you can see like the smile in their eyes. Jabbar Muhammad is definitely one of those guys. Great family, like 60 cousins, a big football family. And we like him a lot. We just we hated to lose him, period. And, our loss is certainly Oregon's gain with that one.
Some final thoughts for Tony Castricone talking about Ducks and Dogs. Departing from football for a moment, you and I are both going to be deep in basketball next week. How's the basketball team going to be?
Yeah, interesting. Much like the football team, they're trying to put it together with a first-year head coach, right? And doing it amongst just so much change. I mean, it's almost disorienting how much change has occurred. And you're not just new coaches, but also whole new players and whole new road trips and whole new opponents and new opponents to learn and new conference. I mean, Joey, is it not the weirdest thing to check the conference standings and be like, I can't quickly eyeball what place we're in because 18 teams is just too many, right?
I know.
I think the basketball team is got some nice pieces. I'm excited about the future. They've recruited 2 really good ones that are going to come in next year that are top 100. For this year, Tyler Harris is long, lanky, athletic. Love his ability to block shots at one end. It has nice touch around the rim. Has a good floater game. Maybe our top NBA prospect. Zoom Diallo is the true freshman point guard that just is savvy for an 18-year-old. And then Great Osobor is he's just a stat sheet stuffer. I mean, if you're playing fantasy college basketball, Great should be your number 1 overall pick. Frank Kepning, our guy, right? You guys know Frank and just an amazing human being, a really cool dude, but just trying to get his knee right. We're hopeful that he'll have a big bounce back year, but early on, we'll see. So we're hopeful that he's a meaningful contributor to this team, but I am excited about the general direction of the team with Danny Sprinkle. I think it was a great hire, and I think he's going to be doing some really, really big things on Mont Lake.
Final thought. Keys to the game on Saturday. What's going to take for Washington?
Well, got to win the turnover margin. And I mean, it's just been like untimely things happening, which I guess that's kind of the definition of a 6-5 team, right? I mean, we'll on these opening drives, it's not like we're just turning the ball over or punting 3 and out every single time. We get down to the 25 almost every week, and then it's like 3rd and 4, false start turns into 3rd and 9, and we just can't do the 3rd and 9 thing, right? So like we just gotta put ourselves in 3rd and short, and gotta find a way to like wall up and not let you guys into the end zone down in the red zone, and just kind of keep it a low scoring, low possession game, I think, and hope that we find pay dirt a couple of times. And again, I mean, we see crazy things happen in college football all the time. Like, it's not unfathomable to me that we can win this game, but like, we got to do the things that we've been doing at home, which is, no turnovers, limit mistakes, and just a low touchdown red zone percentage for Oregon, in their opportunities in this game.
Voice of the Huskies, Tony Castricone. He's got the call coming up on the Washington side on Saturday. Tony, always great to catch up with you. Glad that we still get to do these in the conference realignment era. Thanks for taking the time, buddy, and safe travels wherever you're headed for basketball and down here to Eugene.
All right, all the best. Looking forward to seeing you, Joey.
I think that's just about as cordial as any Washington associate to anyone associated with the University of Oregon is going to be. It's the end of that interview. But I do want to extend thanks as well to Tony Castricone, sitting down with Joey, having the conversation, breaking down this matchup between Oregon and Washington. That will be coming up 4:30 on NBC at Autzen Stadium on Saturday. I hope to see all of you at Autzen Stadium. If you're not there, then I hope that you're listening to us on the Oregon Sports Network. Pregame show starting at 2:30 for the game against the Huskies this weekend. And both teams coming off of a bye week. It's so interesting because Oregon just came out of this stretch, 8 straight conference games, the last 2 of which came against opponents that were also coming off of a bye. Oregon is going to be playing another team coming off of a bye in Washington, but Oregon's also coming off of a bye. And what that meant for everyone who's not playing football, I don't know about you, but I got to enjoy one heck of a Saturday watching and seeing the chaos of everybody else around the country, because I can't believe I haven't brought it up until now. Oregon's the last undefeated left. Yeah, the Ducks are the only ones with a 0 in that loss column, and in this new era of college football, the super conference era of college football, it's so hard to navigate your way through the season unscathed, and only one team to this point in the season has done that, and that is Oregon. With that being said, rivalry matchup, those always get just a little bit tighter. That being said, a team coming off of a bye in Washington, those matchups always get a little bit tighter. A Washington team that hasn't lost to Dan Lanning, a little bit tighter. There's so much that's at stake on Saturday for this Oregon football team. The Ducks have clinched their spot in Indianapolis in the conference championship game, regardless of the result. But if you ask anybody in that locker room, if you ask Coach Lanning, he knows you have to beat Washington. This is a huge game, and you want to say that you finished the regular season as the last undefeated team in college football. You want to say you finished the whole season as the last undefeated team in college football. It's going to take a big performance on Saturday against Washington, but getting to sit home on a work week for everybody around here, but for me, really, it was a bye week. Getting to sit home and watch the matchups where Indiana goes down against Ohio State, Army goes down against Notre Dame, and all of a sudden the Ducks are the last ones with a 0 in that loss column. And that wasn't the only chaos that went on Saturday, as I'm sure everybody is aware. A lot that's shaken up in the CFP. Isn't it fun to just watch the chaos happen? Got to navigate around this week against Washington to avoid the chaos on the Ducks side and trying to do what Oregon has done all year long. Continue to go to work, continue to enjoy playing football, and continue to get better week after week after week. That's the goal, to put forward a strong showing, closing out the regular season against Washington. 4:30 on NBC, 2:30 pregame on the Oregon Sports Network. This is our last Duck Insider show of the week due to all of the games and the holiday coming up later in the week. We'll break down what your weekly schedule is going to be when we return on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey Duck fans, at Country Financial, they make insurance easy. Whether you're shopping for home, auto, or more, their representatives will take the time to understand your specific needs and explain what options work best for you. Worry less and feel more confident knowing you're covered. Visit countryfinancial.com to get started today. Experience more with Country Financial.
Auto and home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, and Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by your local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Duck Insider, your home for the latest news on Oregon athletics on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was a whole range of emotions. There's stuff I still want to do. Being a young dad, it's not giving up. It's shifting. I looked through his eyes. I can envision a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. My life is now devoted to his life.
Through all of fatherhood's firsts, never stop being a dad. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Welcome back inside the Country Financial Studio. It's Duck Insider, brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union, the only Duck Insider of the week for so many different reasons. But it's because that basketball teams will be playing. Later today, women's basketball going up against Georgia Tech, 4 p.m. will be tip-off there. 4 p.m. on Tuesday for the Ducks against South Dakota State on the women's side. But the reason why we don't have a Duck Insider tomorrow is because the men play right before the women against Texas A&M at 1:30 on TBS. So no Duck Insider tomorrow. Ducks versus Texas A&M, 1:30 on TBS. Joey will take care at 1 o'clock for the pregame there in Vegas. Then on Wednesday, 1 o'clock with a 12:30 pregame with Joey as Oregon faces off against San Diego State for basketball on the men's side of things in the Players Era Invitational. We never do a show over the Thanksgiving holiday, and things just, they didn't align for a Friday show either. So it is only going to be a Monday show this week. Now, what does that mean for picks? That's a great question. Breaking down last week in picks, Joey expanded on his lead. Joey now has a 5-pick lead over Georgie, who has a 2-pick lead over Jerry. Joey went 7-1 this week, picked every game right except for the Wisconsin game. He went with Wisconsin over Nebraska. Joey with a 7-1 week. Georgie and Jerry both with a 5-3 week as they were trying to make up games back. Jerry picked Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, and Nebraska correctly. Missed Rutgers against Illinois, missed Minnesota against Penn State, and missed UCLA against USC. Georgie also missed UCLA, USC, and Minnesota, Penn State, but he picked Indiana over Ohio State, dropped that game, did pick Illinois, so got that game back from Jerry. It was a 5-3 week for both Jerry and Georgie as they now fight for second place going into the last week of the year. Joey is running away with it. He's got 91. The Coin went 6-2. Good week for the Coin. Coin beat both Jerry and Georgie, only missed Minnesota against Penn State and Wisconsin against Nebraska. Do not fret. They have all already sent in their picks. They have been submitted. We're going over them. We're making sure that there's no funny business. There will be picks. We just unfortunately cannot air them. Also, football media, that will continue to go on as normal throughout the week. There will be media tomorrow and Wednesday. It'll be live on the GoDucks YouTube channel, or just posted rather on the GoDucks YouTube channel. So much basketball, volleyball at MKA, and Husky Week. It's going to be a good one. See you, everybody.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say